Welcome to the Gita In Action podcast. My name's Radha. I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad-gītā verse by verse, diving into this ancient wisdom text and seeing how incredibly relevant it is to our lives today. And this is a non-sectarian. This isn't a religion that we're pushing or trying to convert anyone. It's a culture. It's a culture of spiritual living, of living in alignment with spiritual principles to upgrade our consciousness and connect us to source. And so no matter what background you're from or culture in society, um, you can dive into this wisdom and benefit greatly and experience transformation. And that's what we're all doing here together. And today is a really exciting day because we are officially launching our Conscious Collective fundraiser. This is a mug. I don't think it's on the website. If you want a mug, you have to text me and I'll send you one. We're launching some merch as a fundraiser for our website because we are a nonprofit here, Conscious Collective. We do retreats, this podcast, free online classes, like meditation, yoga, this podcast. And we're actually expanding a center into Pittsburgh. We're going to have our own center, our own Conscious Collective Center. But we are raising money for our website because these things aren't free, unfortunately. And so please help us. Please help us by buying a shirt. We have 3 shirts on the fundraising website. And yeah, donate and get a tee. We have a couple different tees, a women's tee, a man's tee, a sweatshirt. And the thing about service, I was thinking about this morning. Like this is great service. Like if you listen to the podcast, if you come to retreats, if you enjoy our free yoga classes, just to pay it forward, just to do this small service. You might not feel like it's much, but just to go and buy a t-shirt and support the cause, by wearing the t-shirt, spreading the word, and all the proceeds that we collect go to support our website. And nobody's making any money, by the way. This is a 100% volunteer organization. So it's all just going to support what we're doing. And it may seem like a small service, but it's actually quite a big service when we all come together in that mood and do it together. And that's what it really takes for a movement to take hold. It's not a one person thing. I cringe a little bit when people say, "Oh, Radha's doing this," or it's like, no, it's a community, and it takes a community to build a community. And that's what we're trying to do here. So please help us. And that's a pitch. Oh, the site, the link. I put the link on all our WhatsApp threads, but today I'm going to try to get it on the website. So it'll be on the website, consciouscollectivelife.org, so that you'll have the link. So that is that. Also, you have until Monday to register for pilgrimage and get the early bird registration price. So we just had two. I just saw 2 registrants come through last night. So we're filling up. So please sign up if you want to get the early bird by Monday. Okay, let's get started here. We are starting in verse 25. So chapter 13, verse 25. Oh, you know what? We need to say our prayers. Shakti, do you want to say our prayers for us this morning?
Uh, yes, Mataji, thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaitya Gadahara Srivasari Guru Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you. And Shraddhanjali, when you're ready, we are starting with chapter 13, text 25, which is not that one. Okay, let's do this one.
Dhyanen atmani pasyanti keshit atnaman atmana anye sankyena yojena karma yojena karpare. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
Thank you. So Krishna's continuing this discussion here about the soul and the super soul, but he's getting very practical now. He's essentially saying, okay, so the soul and the super soul exist. We know that, but how do we actually perceive them? So it's one thing to tell us that they exist, but another to actually experience that reality. And so Krishna's saying that there's different ways that people get there. And we talked about all these paths actually extensively in the first 6 chapters. So if you're with us for that journey, then this will be a nice little review for you. If you weren't, then tune in because this is just a little tiny summary points here. And the first path that he talks about here is meditation, dhyana yoga. And it's essentially taking our attention, which is almost always directed outwards, and turning it inwards. Because most of us spend most of our days outwards, concerned about what's happening at work. What does this person think of me? What's going on with my family? What do I need to accomplish? It's just the list goes on and on. If we're not careful, our entire day is just outward, outward, outward. And meditation says, just for a moment, stop investigating everything out there and start investigating what's happening in here. And then as we go deeper into that inner territory, we begin to distinguish the body, the mind, the individual self, and ultimately the super soul. And this is what Krishna describes back in chapter 6. The thing is, this day and age, this can be a little bit tricky because it requires a lot of time and a lot of focus. And that's not real conducive to the people and culture of this age. So it's a pretty austere path, though it's legit, to take all that attention and turn it inwards. And we see yogis do this still today. And in the Himalayas, they're off meditating for just all day, all the time, turning the attention inwards so that they can to realize that the body, the mind, the soul, the super soul. But if we remember when we talked about this in chapter 6, the chapter ends with saying, of all the yogis, the highest yogi is the one who is always thinking of him within. So Krishna just continually brings it back. Like that's the goal of meditation. No, it's not to just relax or to calm down. Those are byproducts. That happens when we practice it. But ultimately the goal is spiritual perception. That's the ultimate, the highest goal. So that's one of the paths. The second path here, he says, is through knowledge, the cultivation of knowledge. And one of the ways that knowledge is cultivated is through Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy, it's analyzing reality. And when you really zoom in and analyze reality, you start to see the difference between matter and spirit. Because if you remember way back a little bit. It wasn't way back, but we talked about the 24 different material elements. And those are like the body, the senses, the mind, the intelligence, the ego, so on and so on. But then what happens is when you really start to analyze all the material elements, you realize like, oh, wait, there's something missing. Like, where is my consciousness? Like I can analyze my body, I can observe my thoughts, my emotions, but if I can observe all of those things, then who is the observer that is observing all of those things? And so that's what brings us to the 25th element, which is the individual soul, the conscious person that experiences matter. And then that brings you to the 26th element, which is the supreme person, the super soul. So it's like an analytical, intellectual way to discern between matter and spirit. Here's matter. Here's the person experiencing matter. And here's the supreme person accompanying that person. So that we talked about meditation, that's very much like for the mind, the mind turns inwards. When here we're talking about knowledge, the path of Gyan, this is more like intellect. It's really it's an analytical approach to differentiating between matter and spirit and ultimately realizing the soul and the super soul. So those are the first two paths mentioned in this verse. The third path, and these are all bona fide paths. The third path is through work. And this is karma yoga. And this is working without attachment to the fruits. And this one, I think, is of the three paths we've talked about so far, this one is probably the one that is most practical for us in this day and age of the three paths that we've talked about so far. Because most of us aren't going to spend 8 hours a day meditating, and most of us aren't like analyzing the elements of material nature all around us. But and Krishna said, Krishna says that's okay. Like your ordinary life can become your spiritual practice. And that's karma yoga. The activity that we're doing doesn't have to change, but what changes is the consciousness behind it. And I was thinking about this quite a bit this week, actually. I was really inspired by something that Julan Yatra said in our last time together. I was so inspired by it that I used it as the title for our last episode. I think it said, I don't have to be in control to feel safe. And this is such a narrative that I think I've carried around with me my whole life. Like, you have a little dysfunction in your family and you adopt this narrative. I need to be in control to feel safe, to be safe. And so I had this really strong desire to control things. And I was pretty good at it. I have this kind of engineering mind, so I'm very structured and organized. So I can plan, I can organize, and I'm comfortable. This is what makes me comfortable and feel safe. I know what's going to happen. But when I start kind of looking underneath of it all, and this kind of came out a lot in service, I realized that there was something deeper that was going on. Like I was gravitating towards services where I can organize, I can plan, I can be in charge. And I was good at it. I was qualified for those services. But at the same time, it wasn't totally like, it wasn't like a selfless thing, because I still had this innate like need where I felt like I needed to control everything to feel safe. And so it would like come out a little bit, it would even come out in that like I would pick projects that were unstable, or I would choose working with people that were a little bit unstable so that I could fix them because I had this innate, it's just like very kind of these dysfunctional behaviors, right? So, and so this was like my journey. And what happens is when you want to do selfless service, and that's like your sincere motive, like that's your sincere motive, but you're not quite there. As you endeavor, you become purified. That's what we say, you become purified. And that means that you start to realize how like the distance between where you want to be and where you actually are, to the degree that you're sincere and you want to see it. So these things started to come up for me a little bit, and I started to kind of to realize that maybe I did want to organize, I did want to plan, I did want to be of service, but at the same time, I was fulfilling this kind of like innate need that I had, or this narrative that like I had to control all these things around me to feel safe. And I would find super dysfunctional environments so that I could really play that out, you know? So anyway, um, this way of thinking is just a little bit not right. Because the problem is that my sense of safety depends upon life cooperating with me, which is pretty unreliable place to put your sense of safety because people don't always cooperate, plans change, things happen that like I could never anticipate. So this karma yoga offers a different way of moving through life. Instead of like, how do I make sure these things turn out the way that I need them to? The question becomes like, what is mine to do here? What is the right action? How can I serve? How can I show up well? And then how can I allow the results to belong to Krishna or belong to something higher than myself? So it doesn't mean that I stop planning. It doesn't mean that I become irresponsible. It means that I stop asking the outcome to make me feel safe. And this is the difference here. I still do my part, I do it sincerely, and then I practice releasing what was never really under my control anyway. And this is what moves us from this mentality that I'm the center and everything needs around me needs to arrange itself according to what I want or need to God's the center. And my duty in this world is to serve the center to the best of my ability without making it about me. And sometimes we don't even realize how steeped we are in this me-centered mentality. But this has been kind of my experience, and I'm still on a journey because I'm realizing it. I'm feeling like less tied to this, like I need to control to feel safe. But then what I see happening is like I forget deadlines or I forget appointments or so I had to kind of, so it's interesting how this kind of like we still have to show up and do our duty, but we have to do it for a different center. And when we do that, it will make us that much more effective. Because what happens is people can feel when you have alternative motives. And then it becomes very entangling. This is how service becomes just so entangling because then it becomes about that relationship dynamic instead of you both working together to serve the higher good. And that's the difference between a healthy relationship and a dysfunctional relationship. So this is kind of like my journey, my process as I've been going through. But we all have different conceptions, different things that we're attached to, different like contaminants in our selfless service. And it's this a beautiful thing about spiritual life. It's this journey of self-discovery. And karma yoga allows us that container to do that. And hopefully with like-minded people that have that same motive. Because you may, if like I think about the people that I serve with, like they also have contaminants, but it becomes fun serving with them because their motive is also to see those contaminants and as they're rising to the surface, like be real about them and do something about them. And so then it becomes like, a real relationship where you're like learning and growing together instead of like, how do I mask this thing that's coming up so that I don't have to deal with it and nobody sees it, even though everybody around me sees it and it's already affecting my entire life, you know? So anyway, this is karma yoga. So these are the three paths: meditation, karma yoga, and the path of knowledge. And we spend a lot of time on karma yoga because it's probably the most practical for us in this day and age. But the point is, that all of these paths are bringing us to this realization. That's the point of these paths anyway. And they meet people where they're at. Some people are very contemplative, they're more meditators. Some people need to understand things intellectually. like to really work with their intellect. Some people learn through doing and serving, karma yoga. But the important thing here is that they're not they're not just three practices that we're supposed to get really good at. You know, they're supposed to lead us somewhere. They're supposed to lead us somewhere. All these paths are supposed to lead us to this place of perception of the super soul of God within. The person is cultivating knowledge. They gradually realize that beyond matter and beyond the individual soul is the supreme. You know, the karma yogic gradually moves from working for themselves towards service to working for God. That's like the perfection of karma yoga. And so the starting points may look different, you know, but they're all moving away from this self-centered consciousness and towards realization of relationship with God. Before I move on, does anybody want to share anything?
I'll share something. Thanks for saying that. I don't even remember saying that, and I was like shocked when you said I said that because I was like, "Oh my God, I actually said something like that. That's crazy." But I think it's just funny because like right now I was thinking of this class and everyone like past few days and just about control in general, like being the controller. And I always appreciate how honest you are about that, Radha, because it's something like I've always struggled with, and I think we both have that kind of like type A tendencies. Even though I feel like most people describe me as super like chill, laid back, but then I just get in these modes where I'm like, oh my God, I have to control this situation. But like I've talked about, like my husband and I are moving back to California where we're from Alachua. And so it's been kind of like I want to just go right now. I'm just like ready to go. I want to get out of here. And he's like, finding the perfect job, like kind of like taking his time with it, but like still like being, on top of it. But I like want to go in his email and make sure that he's like checking his emails for jobs. And like I'm just getting so crazy about it. And like I could tell that Krishna's like, it would be going smoother if I wasn't trying to be the controller. Something you said, Rahara, like Krishna's the ultimate planner. Like I'm not, he knows my desire. He knows that I want to go mostly for like service because that's where I feel connected to him and the temple and my devotee friends there. And so I was getting super discouraged one night and was just having a fit 2 nights ago. I was like, oh my God, will we ever get there? And then I went on YouTube and I swear, like this is like a Krishna miracle. I went on YouTube and there was like this random video from like spiritual hippie tarot card reader, and I don't watch videos like that really. And the title was just in all caps, "You're moving." And I was like, this is so weird. And I like clicked on the video and like the person in the video is like, um, I don't know who needs to hear this, but I went to journal and like Spirit was just telling me I need to tell someone that they're moving and they can like relax. And I literally was like, I don't know why Krishna is trying to talk to me through this like YouTube video right now. But it was just like such a reminder to me of how funny it is when we think that Krishna's not listening or we think he doesn't know like what our desires are and like he'll never let us stray so far that like our devotional service will be hindered. But it's just like it just made me laugh and it was kind of like embarrassing. So I was like, oh, like Krishna here's what I'm saying. I don't need to be so crazy about this.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I do the same thing in like relying on my really like my spiritual friends. Like there's a couple friends that I have like that when they tell me something, I like really take it to mean like I'm like, okay, that's Krishna talking through them because I know that they're like very connected and our hearts are very connected. Like I trust them a lot. So when they say something, I have those same kind of moments. Like when I was talking about a big purchase I was thinking about making and it's just not working out for whatever reason. And I was venting to my friend, and she's like, just wait, just wait. Like that was all she said, just wait. So that just like rings in my head. Okay, I don't need to like go in overdrive like I do. I could just wait. Just let things go. And it's kind of like, somebody else has my back. Like I don't have to, yeah, I don't have to be the controller. So these Krishna sends us these, and the more that we surround ourselves with spiritual association and like-minded association, we'll see Krishna guiding us through those people around us if we're open to it. So it's it's very sweet, this spiritual life. Another thing that somebody told me, my good friend Gokul, she's like my best friend. I swear this lady is like a saint. She's just all day she reads the Bhagavatam and chants when she's not watching my daughter while I'm working. But she told me, I was asking her about opening a conscious collective center. And I was like asking her what she thought, and she's like, I think it would be very wonderful, but don't become possessive. Don't become possessive. And it just like always rings in my head now, like every conversation, or don't become possessive. And there's like simple things, but Super Soul is there, God is there, and He talks to us. And when we can't hear Him in the heart, He talks to us and from devotees around us. So very nice share. Anybody else before we move on?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
As you were, talking about this and going over them, I was just reflecting. I mean, I'm on a path now along a creek in the woods, but I think maybe like others tuned in today, we would think, all right, which path, am I on, or which path have I been on? And the notion of a path, I realize like I'm on this path, but it means I'm not on, say, that path over there or that path over there. But these paths, I really like to say, well, they're all leading in the same direction. But I'd say also, like, we can be on all of them at once. And I can't imagine that all of us have not at some point, gone one way or the other. I mean, it's sort of, we get a little bit of knowledge, whether it's, not all about the body or Krishna's supreme personality of Godhead or whatever it is, like a little bit of knowledge. And then it sort of goes into analysis mode, I mean, really, and more internal and more considering that. And, probably all of us have spent most of our lives working. And when you apply that knowledge and that even, lower level of realization or reflection to the working process, then that becomes, I think, selfless working. And although we may have like remnants, like even when I was most selfless, I also tried to arrange things so they went the way I thought they should go, and I think most of us think, well, the world would be a better place if it just listened to me. Um, but still, all of those, and then doing all of those naturally leads to bhakti. So I was just feeling how, we're on all of those at once. And it doesn't have to be the yogi in the Himalayas, to be self-reflective, meditating on the super soul within. But that should be part of all our lives. So thank you.
Yes, that's dynamite. And we haven't got to like drop that bomb yet, but that's the beautiful thing about the
Yeah.
Bhakti path is that it incorporates them all. That's the beautiful thing about the Bhakti path. Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. And the perfection of karma yoga is bhakti, when we're just serving selflessly. Um, so that's such a beautiful point. Thank you for bringing that up. And I love that you brought in our work lives because I've had some experiences at work lately. Like I have a couple colleagues that I work with that are just really top-notch people. Like they're very high executives to begin with, but they're just very mature. And I see, like, sometimes if I feel like I'm losing control, like it comes out in my voice, I get emotional because I'm attached, I'm attached to control. But with them, it's like they're so mature that they can communicate their point, and I don't hear that in their voice. And I'm like learning from that, like I'm learning a lot because I notice my own voice. I notice my own like anxiety when I lose control. I'm like, oh, this is because I'm attached. That's why I don't have what they have. Like, maybe they're attached, maybe they're not. I'm not sure, but it doesn't come out in their voice. And I see how effective that is. I guess, we can be so much more effective when we live by these spiritual principles. in our daily lives because it comes off like that, that they don't get entangled, they stay above all of that. So it's our work lives are great places to try these things out and see how they change our lives. And that's what all the books are. You have all these books like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, different personalities type. Like it's all just like spiritual knowledge applied to a certain area and like made very broad. Like that's what it all is. Um, but if we're bhakti practitioners, then our whole life becomes successful and sweet. We don't have to get like individualized books for it's yeah, literally the Gita in action at work. Yeah, yeah, that's what we could do. That's the path of bhakti. Okay, so I think we have a couple more points in this verse, and then we can move to the next one. But these practices, one thing I want to point out about these practices that we talked about these three practices: meditation, path of knowledge, and the path of work, karma yoga. And all these, it's important to note that these practices are trying to help us experience spiritual reality because we tend to believe that something is real when we can experience it through our senses. It's like I can touch this, I can taste that, I can see that, I can experience that. Because material experiences, they're so immediate and so intense that what happens is the material world feels like the only reality that there is. This is just natural human nature. When, like, if we really got smart, we'd think like, it's nice that we have airplanes and Wi-Fi and everything now, but if I lived in Pittsburgh, I wouldn't even be able to imagine something like the Himalayan mountains, if it weren't for airplanes and technology, but that wouldn't make them not real. But because I can't experience them with my direct senses, it would be, if somebody described them to me, it would be kind of far-fetched for me. So we experience this in the material world. So what's happening is he's just taking it out another level and saying there's a whole nother dimension of experience that we just haven't learned how to perceive yet. And and that's really what these different yoga processes are doing. This is spiritual technology. This is like the Wi-Fi so that we can see the Himalayan mountains, but synonymously. These practices are redirecting our consciousness so that we're not completely absorbed in material sensations and can become gradually sensitive to spiritual reality. It's like we've almost spent our entire lives tuned into one radio station. And again, because it's the only station we've ever heard, we assume it's the only one that's broadcasting. But it isn't. The yoga practice is teaching us how to tune the receiver. And this is why like a pilgrimage to places that are spiritually potent can change your whole life because you're just immersed in this experience and you realize like, wait, there's a whole nother channel, and you can really access it in those places because it's just the environment that you're in. It's like all of a sudden you're transformed to the Himalayan mountains. So you're like, oh, wow, they are real. So it really changes your whole perception of reality because you're in this immersive experience and you see, wow, it's real. All this is real. This spiritual reality is real. It's not just something that I intellectually, believe. It's real. Um, and that's how it becomes something that we experience. So pilgrimages help us do that in a really immersive, big way. But we can take these practices and we can also access through these practices, this spiritual technology. But we have to be careful to not confuse the method with the goal. And that's the next point, because sometimes we become so fascinated with the method that we forget the goal. And this is what happens a lot in our culture, like with the practice of yoga asana. Yoga asana is so healthy, wonderful practice. But we should also understand that the point of yoga asana is not like, can I be more flexible? Can I do a handstand? Can I put my leg behind my head? Like those things might happen, and that's great. You know, just like meditation might make us more relaxed, might make us stop thinking about dinner for 20 minutes, but that's not ultimately the goal. The goal is inner realization. And it's funny sometimes the thing that's designed to help us transcend the ego can actually be something that the ego just grabs onto. Can I become really good at yoga? Can I become more knowledgeable than everybody at scripture? Can I meditate longer than everybody else? You start thinking like, oh, I'm very spiritual because I can do all these things. When really your spiritual identity or your spiritual practice has just become another identity that you're proud of. So we have to watch these tricks of the ego. It's like the ego is perfectly happy to participate in spiritual life as long as it gets to be the center of attention. If this is you, which is natural, just recognize it. Just recognize it. Because these are the games that the ego will play with us. And if so, maybe the humble thing to do is to pick a little bit more humbling of a service. And maybe you're saying, I want to be front and center. I want to be spotlight. And you're doing everything you can to be that role. But actually, maybe that's not what's best for your spiritual practice. Or maybe the opposite. I told the example the last time of one of my friends who just likes to clean, likes to be behind the scenes because he knows this about the ego and he's afraid of it. And maybe the humbling thing to do at some point is to confront that head on. So humility is not like is not always taking the most, the lowest role necessarily. So humility is unique to the person and the circumstance. And we become expert. To the degree that we're sincere, Krishna gives us the realization of what we need next in our spiritual life to make that to grow. So this is, let's see, maybe we don't go on to the next verse. Maybe we just stick here. Let's see. Well, I'll just finish it up here and see if you guys have some shares. But this is the question that this verse is ultimately leading us with. Meditation is a vehicle. Knowledge is a vehicle. Karma yoga is a vehicle. The physical yoga practice is a vehicle. But is this vehicle actually taking me somewhere? Is my practice helping me become less identified with temporary things? Am I becoming less controlled by my mind? Am I becoming less obsessed with outcomes? Am I becoming more aware of divinity? Am I becoming more loving, more humble, more able to serve? Because if I've practiced yoga for 20 years and I'm become more proud, if I studied scriptures all day and I think I'm smarter than everybody, or if I meditate, if I'm so good at meditating, but now I'm completely absorbed in myself, then it's a question to ask, is this practice really doing what it was meant to do? Because ultimately the method isn't the destination. The purpose of the method is to awaken our perception of spiritual reality and ultimately our relationship with the Supreme. And our relationship with awakening our relationship with the Supreme is bhakti yoga. Because once that's awakened, all of those other tendencies of the ego, they fall away because we're so fulfilled by this relationship. Like, I no longer have to prove myself at work. I can just speak my truth and do my best because I'm doing it in service to God. And that service is binding me in this relationship that is so fulfilling to my heart that whether or not these guys think I'm super smart or have it all together is not really something I'm not worried about. That's what happens when our relationship with God becomes very strong. It becomes the center of our life such that it naturally puts everything else into perspective. And that's why bhakti is recommended as the easiest path. The easiest path, the quickest path. It's like the elevator ride up because that relationship just brings you up. and ultimately the most accessible for this day and age where we're all running around all day with all these things that we have going. Everybody's so busy, busier and busier it seems like life is just never stops. But that's okay. It doesn't have to. We can make Krishna the center of our lives, and naturally he will start becoming the architect of our lives because we'll become more attuned to his guidance and his plans such that we'll just be living in perfect alignment. And that's the beautiful thing about bhakti. You don't have to be a great meditator. You don't have to understand all the philosophy. If I say Sankhya and you're like, I don't even know what that means, that's okay. The spiritual journey, can begin with something much simpler. And that's where we're going to go into the next verse. The next verse will take us to that place. But I love what Kalachandji said in that bhakti incorporates all these paths. And so it's an all-inclusive. It's an all inclusive without the individual effort and austerity that's necessarily required to practice each of the paths alone. Because we all know when you love someone, the service becomes blissful. It doesn't become so austere. And when you're in love, you want to wake up for those midnight feedings for your little baby. My two mamas to be, they're coming. It's like, that's okay because you love someone. So it becomes natural. This is the path of bhakti. We're falling in love. It's the path of falling in love. And not with, not a conditional love of this world. Because even our mother-child relationships, even though that's like the highest that we can experience in this world, still our love for Krishna, our relationship with the Supreme is even higher than that. Can you imagine? We get little glimpses because mother-child love is pretty high. But imagine a love higher than that. That's a path of bhakti. It's a process of falling in love and realizing who we actually are in that relationship and being transformed by that relationship. Does anybody want to share anything? Are you all connecting with this? Do you have a little glimpse in your own life of how this relationship with Source has started to transform you?
Yeah, I'll share that something that like before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was more in like a like I mean, I still love Ram Dass, of course, but that was like my first guru, and before that I was doing some other like meditations. But one of the first times after I went through a really tough period a few years ago, like when I was 25, I was like, okay, like something needs to change. Like if there's a God out there, like someone's got to know, like someone somewhere's got to know something. And so the minute I said that, like my whole life changed, and I just started finding all these spiritual teachers coming into my life. And for the first time ever, I felt like I was able to be more honest. And I think that's when Krishna allowed me to enter into the path of bhakti after I practiced like a lot of radical honesty. Um, Something that Kustuba says, like that karma is like our cosmic sensitivity training. I feel like that's exactly kind of like what happened to me. And like, one of the things that you said, Radha, resonated. Like, I've been doing yoga since I was about like 14 years old, and I went vegetarian a few years after that time. And I'm 30 now, so I would say that like physically I'm like pretty good at yoga, right? But like I would go to classes and I would feel the ego coming out that I could do this pose or this pose. And I literally said to one of my friends who was a teacher, I was like, I'm just not going to go to yoga classes anymore because like I'm more concerned about like being the one in the front that's like really good, that I want everyone to see that I'm really good. And I stopped going to like in-person yoga classes for years because I just was like I'm doing this not because it's like something Ram Dass says is every asana is like a different pose to reach for God. I don't know if he said that or if he quoted that from someone, but yeah, I wasn't seeing it that way. And that was like the more radically honest I was in the beginning of my bhakti path, the more I think Krishna allowed me to come to him. And then, yeah, I think once you like personally, once I got initiated, I felt like so many more anartas coming out. So now I'm still working on that. But like, yeah, so that was kind of what I resonated with what you said.
Wow, that's beautiful. Have you been to a yoga class lately?
Yeah, when we were back in LA for a few weeks not too long ago, and one of my best friends teaches, and I went, and there was still some ego there for sure, but it wasn't like it was. Like I was able to kind of be like, okay, I'm noticing that I'm doing this, and then like, do I want people to see or am I actually doing the pose? So there's more like awareness, than there was before. Like there's more awareness and more like um, what a joke I plan to play with myself is like if I feel the ego coming, like I just pretend to sound an alarm in my head or like just try to like laugh at myself, you know? So yeah.
That's amazing. Wow, so nice. This is what spiritual relationships do for you. You know, it's not that people are perfect. It's that they're trying and and their goal is growth. Their goal is not to be right, but it's to grow. And and when you surround yourself with people like that, you naturally grow also. And it's really encouraging. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Kay, is your hand up, my dear? You're good now. I think we should be able to hear you if you speak.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Are you sure?
Oh, since I'm outside and I could not hear you. About ego, I mean, how you open everything up and you talk about yourself. I mean, I don't think so many other people can talk like that. I mean, being so honest that, okay, this, like now, Julan Yatra, she was so honest about. But talking about ego and how all these lectures and Gita affects us, impacts us, we can see that, like, okay, my sister-in-law, I'm being so nice to her and all that, but yet she would say something odd in front of so many people. And I was like, wow, she said something like this. I thought after 25 years of being together, we are like sisters. We are like, I mean, I'm showing all the nice things about her and the family, and she's trying to bring me down in front of so many people. So then it affected me, and then I feel like, oh no, all this is so temporary. I'm not going to get because before what I would do is, oh, look, she said this about me, and then I'm going to tell the other sister-in-law, and then I'm going to tell the other. I'm so hurt. Look, so it now it's not about me. Who am I? It's okay, and everybody is envious. Everybody is. I mean, we all have all these qualities in this material world. So not to worry. It's okay if somebody, maybe the Rajas Tamas is going around, and so this is okay. So that it changes us, the way we think, the karma that we are doing, because if I would have reacted the other way, my karma would have been different. But now our karma is yoga. Whatever we are doing, it has to please Krishna and not think about all these other things. So that is something I had to say.
Yes. Wow. That's amazing. That's something we can all learn from. Like the next time somebody maybe does us a little bit wrong or says
Yeah,
something that we're a little bit offended by, it's okay. It's
it's
okay.
okay. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, because everybody loves me so much, so she got a little jealous, so it's okay.
You're so damn lovable, Kay.
Thank you.
You can't
And it
blame her,
was
really.
it was so obvious because we went to my sister-in-law's son is getting married. So it was the son's what do you call, the in-laws. And they were all like, hey, you come and sit with us. Hey, come and you have to eat this. And they're all joking and laughing with me because I'm joking and laughing. So they're joking and laughing. So that's the way it worked. But then some people got jealous. So it's okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's okay.
That's our good mantra for the week. That's okay.
Yeah.
No
It's
problem.
okay.
I'm not going to retaliate or be a jerk back. I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm going to let you have that. You're overcome by certain modes, and I'm not going to get overcome by that same mode, or that's, you know, going to bring me down.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I'm not going to.
Beautiful,
So,
beautiful.
sorry. This is all about Krishna consciousness, the balloon of Krishna consciousness around us.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I want to point out from these shares, we sometimes hear the word karma used in different contexts, which can be a little bit confusing because there's actually like 5 different meanings of karma. So I think in the shares, we've used it differently. But so the 2 ways I'll just point out as we've been talking about karma yoga, which is very specific path, you know, where we try to work selflessly without ourselves in the center. You know, that's karma yoga. And then we use the word karma to say like the reaction that comes from our actions. So that's your karma. So they're not the same. It's a funny thing about Sanskrit words. Some of them are used in lots of different contexts, but I just want to point that out in case following that was a little bit confusing for anybody. Does anybody else want to share? Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, my friends. Well, it's our time anyway. So if nobody else wants to share, we can end for the day. Um,
You
please
can
get your
start the day.
well, yeah. Yes, let's start our days. Let's start our days. We have a yoga festival at New Vrindavan this weekend, so please pray for us and every soul who attends that they grow closer in their evolution and connection with Source. And please get your merch. Please do that. That's that service. That would be a big service for our community. And sign up for pilgrimage. Those are the 3 things. And I'll see you all on Monday. Thank you for coming with your sincere hearts.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you so much.
Yeah.